This is Hampley III from Spiritual Combatants, where we're training soldiers for Christ. I want to thank you for joining me for another Bible Study Bootcamp message. This is episode number 24 and lesson 19 in the book, Living for the Kingdom. Living for the Kingdom provides 115 lessons based on the commands of Jesus, and this is in fulfillment of his great commission in Matthew 28:18-20. And so through this Bible Study Bootcamp series, we're using it to teach you how to study the Bible while we go through what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. And so also through this study, we covered another book called the Bible Study Blueprint. And the Bible Study Blueprint covers 4 methods of studying passages of scripture. And so through this study, we use the passage study and the word study, but there's also 2 other studies you can go through. So today we're going to be talking about divorce. In our previous lesson, we talked about marriage, and this one we're going to cover divorce. And there's several scriptures that were provided, but I'll just read from one, and then we'll get right to the questions. So in Matthew 5:31, it says, "It has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, cause of her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery." And so in question number 1 here, it says, well, before I begin with the first question, now let me read what we talked about the definition of adultery was. And it's conjugal infidelity. An adulterer was a man who had illicit intercourse with a married or a betrothed, this is engaged woman, and such a woman was an adulteress. An intercourse between a married man and an unmarried woman was fornication. Adultery was regarded as a great social wrong as well as a great sin. So in question number 1, it says, when Jesus told the disciples, "It has been said," in Matthew 5:31, what was he referring to? And this is in Deuteronomy 24:1-4. Let me read it real quick. It says, "And when a man hath taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he had found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and giveth it in her hand, and send her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife after she is defiled, for that is an abomination before the Lord. And thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance." So that's what that was what Jesus was referring to. So in question number 2, it says, why did Moses permit divorce? And because of the hardness of their hearts, but from the beginning it was not so. And in Matthew 19:8, it says, "Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so." So from the beginning, Adam and Eve, it was not meant for man and wife to be separated, but because of the hardness of their heart. So the hardness, think of like a block of 3x3 block of solid block of concrete, immovable, and someone that's stubborn. And to be stubborn and amplified, it came out to be like having or show a dogged determination not to change one's attitude or position on something, especially in spite of good arguments or reasons to do so. So someone's heart may be hard, and it's going to be immovable. I'm going to be determined to have hate. I'm going to be determined to dislike this person. I'm going to be determined not to forgive. I'm going to be determined to have bitterness in my heart. I'm going to be determined not to trust and not to love. And sometimes when you're talking about the hardness of somebody's heart, it's not always something that person had done to them. Sometimes a person had been hurt in the previous relationships or in their past with their parents or somewhere, and then when they get into a marriage, they're hard-hearted in the marriage as soon as it starts off, because they're not going to trust or open up their hearts to be hurt again as they were hurt as children. And so they don't give their spouse an opportunity to love them. They remain remain close-hearted and they become tight, and it changes the dynamic of their relationship to where it can't grow in love because one of the people are stubborn and they're hard-hearted and unwilling to move from their previous life that they had and where they were hurt and wounded. They're unwilling to trust and allow their hearts to open to another person. So sometimes that's the reason as well, but often, but the description here Moses is talking about is the hardness of their heart, not to move toward positions of love, but I'm gonna move toward positions of hate, and then maybe I found some inclusiveness in this person, and I'm not going to show forgiveness. I'm not moving. I'm immovable from this, and that's why he permitted it. But from the beginning, it was not so. So in question number 3, it says, why did Jesus say a man could divorce his wife? And what happens if the divorce is for any other reason? And what will happen to the person who marries a divorcee under those circumstances? So the only way that Jesus says that a man can divorce his wife is through fornication. And this is in the definition in the Greek. It says to act the harlot and to indulge in unlawful lust, and it says here also practice idolatry and commit idolatry, and then also said unlawful lust of either sex, so both sexes, or to commit fornication. And so now this fornication, when you come and you have sex with someone that's not your spouse and you're married, you become one with them and you violate the relationship that you had, that God had that established you as one flesh. So the two people become one flesh through that conjugal relationship within the marriage. But now you break that relationship by you going out and having sex with someone that's not your spouse. Let me read to you real quick in 1 Corinthians 6 and 15 to 20. Know ye not that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them members of a harlot? God forbid. What? Know ye not that which is he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For two, he said, shall be one flesh. But what he has joined unto the Lord is one spirit. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man commits, a man doeth, is without the body. But he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. What? Know ye not that the body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For ye were bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So in the second question, it says, what happens if the divorce is for any other reason? When you come and you marry another person, or you have sex with that person, you commit adultery. Why? Because God's still looking at you like you are still married to the first person. Your ex is actually the person he's looking at that you're still married to because it was for any other reason. And now you begin to join with another person and become one with them in another relationship. So you get remarried. Now that is considered to be adultery. And many of us do not consider that. Sometimes a relationship for many different reasons may not work, but then we divorce, we remarry, and then we don't think that we're committing adultery because of the means in which the previous relationship may have ended. And so in the last question it says here, what will happen to the person who marries a divorcee under those circumstances? And again, you commit adultery because the other spouse is still considered joined to the other divorced partner. And so in Matthew 19 and 9, I'll read it one more time. It says, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away commits adultery. And that's something we have to consider, and something that should be discussed if you are considering marrying another person, or if your marriage ended for any other reason besides fornication, and you're considering marrying another person, that needs to be a topic of a conversation. These scriptures need to be discussed. So question number 4, it says, what is the consequence for those who commit adultery? And so there's one in the Old Testament, and then one also in the New Testament. I have 2 examples. In the Old Testament, it no longer applies to us. That's under the law of Moses, but I'll provide the description just to show the seriousness of committing adultery. In Leviticus 20 and 10, it says, and the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. Mark 7:21-23 says, from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, theft, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within and defile a man. So then you become defiled through your actions of adultery. And then in Galatians 5:19-21, it says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envying, murders, drunkenness, revilings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Committing adultery has eternal impacts, implications to those, and eternal consequences, as I talked about in the previous video. So if you are in this situation now, or you're considering it, well, number one, do not commit adultery. Don't separate what God has put together, and you want to make sure that you learn to live with your spouse. And if a divorce does come, that you address the divorce in a manner that is proper, that where you can find restoration and wholeness and forgiveness in God, because there is redemption beyond divorce. And I do want to talk about these 3 quick points, but there's redemption beyond divorce. Beyond, some people see it as shame, some people see it as some type of guilt, that there may be considerations that they won't be accepted by God or others, and those things aren't true. You can be accepted by God. You can be welcomed back. There doesn't have to be any shame or any guilt, no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. There is none. But there's 3 things that I want to talk about that I want you to do if you find yourself in a position or situation where you have divorced from your spouse. And number 1 is, I want you to be able to find healing. And you find healing in God. You allow Him to heal your heart, your mind, and your soul. And you don't want to spend your time just focused on what the other person did. And sometimes you do, because you have this bitterness, this anger, this frustration that the relationship ended, and you feel like it's not my fault and it's all their fault, and you keep pointing the finger at them. You never have time to focus on yourself and say, you know what? That person may have done X, Y, and Z, even if they committed adultery and they went out and caused a fornication, they went out and slept with someone else that wasn't their spouse, wasn't you, but you say, you know what, I'm going to focus on maybe what my part was. And in Proverbs, let me read this real quick. In Proverbs 21:19, it says, it's better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. Now, you may not be the cause for why, like, your husband may have went out and committed adultery, but by being an angry and contentious woman, you may be responsible for why he was in the wilderness to begin with. And so you want to make sure that you look at, okay, what was my role in this relationship? Was I an angry and contentious woman? Because I'm going to tell you, nobody wants to live with an angry and contentious person. They would rather live outside. They'll pay whatever money. They'll go get another apartment. They don't want to live in the house. They don't want to be there. But what you want to be able to do is say, you know what is my role in this? What was my role? And Lord, help me to see what this is. Pull this out of me, Lord, so that I can be the man or woman that you want me to be. Let me see. Show me, Lord, because I want to be able to be healed. And there are people that have married more than their second, third marriage, sometimes fourth or more, and they commit the same acts that they did in the first marriage. And they don't know why the marriage continues to run as the course that it does. They're like, well, why is this marriage like this? It was like the first one. Well, because you never took the time to realize what was going on and what you were doing in the first relationship, because you carried it to the second and the third and all the baggage that comes along with it. And then you continue to compare your third wife to your first wife and what they were doing, what they weren't doing, or the third husband and the third husband with the first husband. You keep comparing them, but you keep doing some of the same things that you're doing before. So you have to be able to find healing and peace in God. And that's number 1, to find out what your role was, so that you don't continue to repeat some of the same manners and behaviors that you did in the past. Number 2 is you want to find healthy outlets. And because divorce can be such an emotional and trying time and season, there are people that will seek some destructive and sinful methods in order to find peace or to numb the pain. And I say peace, it's not really peace. It's like this temporary band-aid, but it's also, you have to pay for the sin that you committed when you're going out, maybe heavy drinking, looking at pornography, be you're going out in other illicit relationships that you continue on trying to numb and mask the pain of what you've been through with divorce, because it is and can be very painful for a lot of people as they experience a separation from their spouse for any length of time. And so you want to make sure that you create healthy outlets for yourself. You have good and godly people that will help you and surround you and keep you focused and steady on the things of God, that you develop new habits and new hobbies that you can engage in that will keep you on a path of healing and restoration for yourself. And number 3, you want to live at peace. And this is huge. You want to live at peace with that ex-spouse. And many times you'll find that people will badmouth or will destroy or do anything to demean or belittle the character of the other spouse. And so they do that in front of the children. And those children often are too young to try to process what's going on. So then the children begin to hate the father. They begin to hate the mother. And the child needs both parents in their lives, because each person provides something different. I can't provide what my wife can provide to my daughter. My daughter, she's 21. I can't provide her what she needs right now. There's things I've given her throughout her upbringing, but right now I can't give her what mom can give her. I can give her what dad can give her, and vice versa. And there's things that we need to see. There's things we need our parents in our lives. And a lot of people that don't have their parents in their life, for one of those reasons, and it can be where the parent, the mom, said, look, your dad is a dirt bag and blah, blah, blah. So then you don't want to hang around your dad anymore because you see the dad as a dirt bag, which the mom is going to pay for because she's going to be accountable for that. So then the child grows up with dad issues because she didn't have the investment that the dad could have made in her. So now she grows up with issues with men. And so how her perspective of men is different and not in the process or in the framework that it should be in, because she didn't have a proper relationship with her dad. And so now she's going out with this different view or mindset of men, and she didn't grow up with her father, and she doesn't have a relationship with her father. So guess what? Now she has children that don't have a relationship with their grandparents. And for me, my grandparents were huge role models for me. And they may not have said a lot, but I was watching. And many of the grandchildren were watching. The children, we're all watching our grandparents, and we want to emulate them. We want to see, and we want to have a relationship just as they had. But then you don't have that. You don't have the relationship that the grandparents can have in their lives, because you grew up, because the mom in the beginning grew up saying the daddy was a dirtbag and they were no good and they were this and they were that. So then you're talking about generations of people are affected. Millions of people can be affected because you choose to badmouth and to destroy the character of your ex-spouse in front of the children. That's their decision to be able to make. To say, you know what, when they're old enough, then I don't want to be around dad. I don't want to be around mom. I'm going to have a relationship. You give them the opportunity to have the relationship. You don't have to like what the other, you need to love everybody now. Let's just get that right. Now, we are called to love our neighbor. We're called to love everybody, but you may not, because the relationship was ended, then they still have a right, unless there's some other extenuating circumstances, to have an opportunity to grow up in the child's life, so that they grow up and having the role of the dad and the mom, and that's very important. And so you want to make sure that as you're healing, you're finding healthy outlets, but then you're also ensuring, if you have children with the ex-spouse, that you're giving them an opportunity to grow up in the child's life so that they can have a healthy balance. Now, the healthiest balance is if you're all in the house together, but if it's not that way for whatever reason, then give them the opportunity to spend as much time as they can so that they can have an opportunity to have an influence, a positive influence in that child's life, and it doesn't affect their future as well as their children and their children and their children after them. So I pray God will bless you through this message. I pray that you will seek to love. I have some videos. My previous video talks about marriage, and also I have a love series on 17 characteristics of love. You can go on my YouTube channel and check that out. But take some time to review this message again. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please hit me up, and please share this message if it blessed you, and like it as well, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive more videos just like this. And until the next time, may God bless you abundantly. God bless.